What's up, everyone, and welcome to a new video on this channel and the start of a new So Rare series. Today we're joined by McBride. How are you doing, McBride? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. And this is going to be the start of a new series called the Ultimate So Rare 11, taking some heavy inspiration from the James Allcott Dream Team series, if anyone's seen it or familiar with it. But it's essentially going to be a series where McBride will, and any guests that we get on, will go through their ultimate So Rare 11, the players that mean the most to them from their So Rare journeys. So we've got your team down here, McBride. Do you want to tell us about your goalkeeper?
Yeah, no problem. Went for quite an attacking formation here as well, and as a 3-4-4 or 3-4-3 or something I've ended up going for, but there we go. So yeah, started out for the back. So yeah, I picked Ruben. He's still up in my fridge actually. So there's a he was one of the first cards I bought on the platform actually. So when I came on 3 years ago, Shakhtar Donetsk license and things, and I'd already bought like 5 or 6 cards, and somebody gave me a shout to say that he was pretty good. So yeah, I got him. He was £9 for the rare for Truman, and obviously at that point he wasn't really playing or anything. Even the Shakhtar games weren't covered in the league at that point either. And then eventually he's made it into the team. So it's one of those guys like he just kind of holds a special place. Like he's obviously still under 21s at the moment as well, and I've used them loads, even though you're only using them in Europe and the odd occasion where I've actually have used them a lot. So hopefully he'll get a move to a fully covered league. But yeah,
Have there been any rumours for any moves for him this summer?
I he they brought in a goalkeeper, so they brought in a young goalkeeper, and I think that they've kind of paved the way. And after Mudryk went for the big fee and stuff, I think Shakhtar would be open to selling him. But in terms of where he goes, I don't know. There's a lot of teams that need goalkeepers and stuff in EPL as well. So obviously Spurs have filled that slot now. There was a link with Spurs at one point, and they've filled that. They've signed Vicario, but as soon as goalkeepers start moving about, you get that kind of you know spaces open up and stuff like that. So I think this will probably be the season he'll move on. But even if he doesn't, Shakhtar usually get some games, and at the moment he's playing for Ukraine and Ukraine under 21s. So
Yeah,
just
so
at
you're
like
getting
four,
some good utility out of him at least. For
yeah,
I mean,
and
how
Ukraine
much is
as well.
he going for now? Obviously from £9, he's probably a
This
hell
is
of a
a
lot
lot
more than
more
that
than
now.
£9. I'll tell you what the last sale is. 2 seconds. I've had value out of my £9. That's for sure. Price. So the last year went for like point 0.5 ETH, so that's what 8 or 900 or something.
Yeah. So for someone
So
that isn't even from a covered league, you've
yeah,
you made a good amount on
yeah.
him.
So that was a bit of fortune, but kind of one of those guys where I don't think I'll sell him now. Like sometimes people look at these guys and say, "Oh, it's £1,000 now. Why don't you sell him?" Whatever, but no, get use out of him, and I do rate him pretty highly as well. Obviously shown getting into the Ukraine team and things that he's a good goalkeeper. So I think if he goes somewhere and he goes for a good fee, it'll be to play. So who
Yeah.
knows where he ends up? You never know. He might end up in Italy or whatever. I don't see him staying much longer at Shakhtar. So there we go.
Yeah,
It's the number
for sure.
number one position sorted.
So yeah, starting off with a good start there. So we'll move on to your first defender. Um, I haven't told you which order I'm going to get you to introduce these
Yeah,
players, but
that's
you
fine.
want non-Celtic defender.
Yep.
If you want to introduce him,
Douglas Santos. Yeah, again, he's a guy I've had for a couple of years on the platform. So it was, I think I got him. It was just before the Russian winter break, so he dipped a wee bit, and again, £30, which is looking absolutely ridiculous at the moment.
still,
Obviously, if people have not really sort of known Douglas Santos, then are really dominating, and he's just so consistent. So he obviously is one of their key players. He's a really quite a solid player, suits the matrix, and I think he takes some of the set pieces and things, at least from a certain side as well. So he racks up really good scores. But if you get a chance to go and have a look at Douglas Santos and look at his general scoring profile, he's been absolutely
not the
mad.
best.
So Yeah,
Yeah. So how long has he been in your gallery then? So was it
I think
last
two
season?
and a half years, 2.5
Yeah.
years. So I mean, I got him like before the prices went up. This was the point where there was no limited and things, you know. So
Mm.
30 quid for a rare is pretty mad. But yeah, I think that's in amongst the best 30 quid I've ever spent in my life, to be
Yeah.
honest. Because he's a good price now, but it's not only that. He's just the type of guy you can use him so much. He's just one of the best scorers, defender wise, on the
Yeah.
platform. So I don't,
Look
again, brilliant.
yeah, looking at it, I joined Sorare probably it was just after the limiteds were first minted. So that's sort of what got me into the platform, and obviously they'd already had their booms in prices by that point. So
Yeah,
it was sitting here now and hearing about people picking up sort of insanely scored rare cards for 10 to 20 quid is sort of unheard
um,
of nowadays. It's
yeah.
totally different world to what it was back then.
You can get some, but they'll probably be rubbish at the moment. But I
Yeah,
mean, I remember it was a quite a it's a good story as well. To come back down there, but I remember Tyrrell Malacia. So Tyrrell Malacia was at one point was like a tier 3 reward. So he was going for like 20, 30 quid. He wasn't even playing with his previous team. And then all of a sudden he get into the team he's playing, first team football, Dutch football, all that type of stuff. He started putting up good scores. Then the next season, it was Feyenoord that came from us. So Feyenoord were playing the European qualifiers. There wasn't really much on, and they had a few good young players, and it became this stack. So it was like Bichelo, Malasia. Can't remember who else was playing. Maybe Orkin Kokshu, etc. as well. And his
yeah,
price ballooned. Now, obviously, now he's kind of back down again because he's playing for Man United and he's in and out of the team. But he went from being a tier 3, which is now the equivalent of tier 5, to being a star rare in the space of like 8 months. So
yeah.
sometimes people think they can't can't compete or whatever, can't come in, can't get these guys, but sometimes you get one of those wee gems where you get a
Yeah,
guy for fiver for a limited or 20 quid for a rare, 30 quid for a rare, and all of a sudden, woof, you know, they turn
yeah,
into
they boom. That's why I think the eye test is a really good sort of metric on how you should be choosing your players, because you
yeah,
might have a player that is really really good to watch and doesn't necessarily get the um, scores on the boards at the moment. But if you've watched him and you've seen that in them, then it only takes for a turn of form or something to quickly sort of blow up. So I
yeah.
think
For
that's
young
one.
players as well, especially for young guys, like
Yeah,
I quite like buying and holding like younger type players because if you spend 30, 40, 50 quid on somebody and they don't really hit it off, at least you can just kind of hold and use and get some
yeah,
value out of it that way. So you don't need to always be looking at what if this guy like trebles in price and I can sell him, all that type of stuff. That you can also think about using people as well. So, and obviously the prices have already kind of come down a wee bit recently as well, through
yeah,
the spell where things were a bit more difficult. So, keep an eye out for guys who've kind of come down and haven't risen again,
yeah,
whether because of injury or whatever, and still get some value. But yeah, Douglas Santos has been one of the guys who's just been first name in the team sheet all the time, to be honest. So
yeah, yeah. I can imagine. So we'll move on to your next defender. I'll let you choose which one you want to go to next because they're both Celtic boys.
yeah, Carol
Lads, and
Starfelt.
near and
Yeah,
dear to your heart. So Carl Starfelt, we'll go for
yeah,
him first.
go for Starfelt. Yeah, I mean Celtic's an interesting one because Celtic weren't on the platform when I started, so they were probably only came in maybe about year and a half to maybe towards the end of the season in. So that's been pretty huge, to be honest, because obviously always loved it, always did like wanted to buy young players and that sort of stuff, but having your own team on's like pretty cool. So
Yeah,
and when Celtic came out, the prices were huge. So like they've
yeah,
been on pretty good form and everybody could see in Sorare data like all the guys averaging above 60 and stuff. So it was pretty hard to get some of the good cards at the start. So I was kind of resigned to just like I'll get a rare team or I bought a lot of the limited ones, like the shirt numbers and everything because they
yeah,
were a bit more affordable. But Starfelt is a guy who's really obviously really consistent. But there's another reason why I picked some of the Celtic players as well is because these guys form part of the All Star Unique one, which is
Yeah.
mad.
Massive, massive, massive for you, wasn't it?
I
I don't think I'd ever seen, in the Sorare community, people gather together so much to support one person.
I
There was so much support on Twitter and everything for that win. I
yeah,
think we were all sort of buzzing for you when that happened.
it was quite cool because I think it was only the third time I've ever even entered the tournament as well. So like I don't like obviously playing the All Star Unique. You need minimum of 3 unique cards, and for other unique tournaments, sometimes you need 4 or 5. So, and if you see the price of unique cards and stuff, they're pretty hefty prices. So I was never really kind of focusing on I want to get into the unique level. It was more along the lines of just building up my Celtic cards and using them, like obviously All Star Rare Pro and all that type of stuff. And then things just aligned a wee bit as well. So Starfelt was a super rare in there. I did
Yeah,
actually have an alternative unique I could have used, but I decided just to go full Celtic stack last game of
yeah.
the season.
They
Celtic
smashed it.
hadn't, yeah, we hadn't been playing that well either. But the funny thing with the last game of the season is it's like trophy day, so the Parkhead's always a good atmosphere. You're playing at home. They're bringing the trophy. Went from rotating to bringing in the full team type thing, and with like probably about half an hour to go,
Yeah,
we'll come back to Matt O'Reilly. But basically, the commentators went right. Boards up. Matt O'Reilly's coming
he's coming
off.
off, yeah.
Matt O'Reilly's taking a corner, whipped it in, and Starfelt scored. But him and O'Reilly were the only guys in the team who hadn't hit a decisive at that point. So
Yeah.
that just obviously ballooned the score up. So it was finishing like
Did
566.
did you realise at the point that happened, did you realise you were gonna be top, or did it
Yeah.
take a little while to sink in that
No, the I was watching in the living room, and my wife and the wee man were in the playroom, and I was running about like a complete maniac, like shouting and stuff in the house because I knew as soon as he scored that because it was quite a strong score overall, clean sheet, other decisives. I think Furuhashi had scored 2.
Yeah,
So I knew that it was going to be right up there. I didn't know if it was going to win, but my reaction was kind of along the lines of I
this could
might
be it. This could
win the All Star Unique here, but and like obviously I've experienced loads of stuff in Sorare, and but
that's gotta be up
that's
there.
not a competition I'd ever really experienced being up near the podium on. So
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
again,
definitely.
I know the next one's Greg Taylor, but I mean Greg Taylor's not by any means the highest scoring defender ever in my gallery, but I want to make sure I include a couple of the Celtic boys because I've
Y
got his unique. So
yeah,
um, I've included him for that game as
yeah,
well. And funnily enough, that game he got an assist. So I think it was
yeah.
first or second goal. He's played it through to Furuhashi.
Yeah,
Both,
I think it was the first goal because I was watching that game as well,
yeah,
downstairs with, me and my brother were watching it, but he's not a massive Sorare guy, but he'll often, like, sit with me as I'm watching games, and he'll, like, watch the scores come in with me, and, I've got a full limited stack of a lot of the similar guys. I was playing a very
yeah,
similar team to what you were that game week, and it was I think the only difference was I had Jota playing instead of, Kyogo. And yeah, I remember thinking that whenever my players were doing well, it was also your players that were
yeah, we would
gonna
do
be
well.
smashing it as well.
Yeah,
So, we'll move on, quickly to the, last defender as well, because obviously a very similar sort of story probably with this one as well. But Greg Taylor.
yeah. So just because of that win, basically. I mean, I think Taylor, I picked up the unique probably only about 2 weeks before, so it was kind of part of that strategy of like, hang on, like I've got some good like Celtic uniques and things here, and preparing for moving forward. And as I had the Ethereum and stuff to spend, and I've been trying to get him for ages, and there's only one guy had him, and he was looking for quite a lot, and then somebody else won him, and then I just kind of decided I was going to just sort of pay the price type thing. It's a lot of money to commit to buying a digital football card type thing, but I kind of seen that chance of right. Well, I could, I've actually feel as if I've got a team that could be quite competitive in the All Star sort of side of things, and I brought him in. So yeah, it worked out quite well because he got the assist that day. And Taylor's a funny one because sometimes he puts up poor scores being a fullback, but he kind of changed position a wee bit at Celtic, where he was playing a bit more inverted. He's not quite
Yeah,
Trent Alexander-Arnold, but getting more involved in the play, and he seems to be picking up some goals and assists.
yeah,
And Celtic obviously are quite a dominant team in the league as well. So yeah, I included them basically just
yeah,
for that, but also because of the importance of the
yeah.
card as well.
I
So
felt the thing with Greg Taylor, he always seems to pop up with something when it matters. Like he'll often, what I've found anyway. He's always, if he's in a dud lineup, he won't do anything. But if he's in a lineup that's going to win you something, he's going to turn up and
yeah,
he's going to smash it because he's got those peaks. He's either 30, 35, or he's 100. He's
yeah,
not really any in between, is he?
in between. The thing as well is if you're maybe buying some Celtic cards and you can't afford like Carter Vickers or whatever, obviously Vickers wasn't fit at that point when I won that, but like Carter Vickers are a really nice high average and stuff, but always quite expensive. So sometimes it's good to have that wee differential as well, because Taylor
Yeah,
does put up lots of 90s and 100s. Obviously, he does poorer scores as well, but Celtic really do dominate games, particularly at home, obviously as well. So he is an interesting option just as something a wee bit different, and he's getting involved in goals and assists and stuff now. So he
yeah,
picked up a few goals this season, which is actually an improvement for him because he was more seen as a defensive player previously. But so he's
yeah.
really been an improvement. So yeah, I mean,
Last I
obviously got
last I
adjusted.
checked, he was under a tenner as well.
Aye, not
Under a tenner
expensive.
for limited, so he's definitely a good option. So,
Yeah, I agree with
um,
that.
we'll move on to your midfield, and we won't. Actually, no, we'll stick on the Celtic theme, I think,
Yeah,
because while we're here, we may as well. So,
aye,
do
true.
you want to tell us about your first midfielder?
Yeah, Matt O'Reilly. So again, this is one I kind of pushed the boat out a wee bit for. So Matt O'Reilly was a funny one because when Celtic came out, he never got a card. So I always had a picture and everything, but never got a card. So it's kind of one of those. Like I would always be like every time we'd be on the site, be like typing in Matt O'Reilly and seeing if he got a card yet. 'Cause sometimes he just come randomly midway through the
Yeah,
season or whatever. So eventually, he did get a card, and he's a really good young player. And when he's playing, he takes like set pieces and things as well. So had a wee spell after the World Cup where Aaron Moy was playing pretty well, but like overall, he's been quite a key player.
yeah,
Still under 23s, and yeah, kind of pushed the boat out a bit to get the unique. But at that point, he wasn't. Although he was still pretty expensive, still a lot of money. I don't think he's the price he would be now because he was kind of a wee bit in and out with Moy, and I think like if
he's
he was to
nailed
come out now,
now.
somebody would just blast it, like like
Yeah,
into oblivion type thing because he's
yeah,
he's under 23, playing for Celtic, takes set pieces. He does a reasonable base, and obviously he can hit those high peak scores and stuff as well. And that day for the All Star Unique was just insane because he was doing quite a reasonable base, but actually earlier on in the game made one. He crossed it in, Starfelt headed it, and the goalkeeper made an outrageous save. And I was like, that would
yeah,
be perfect for my team. And he was literally standing. The guy said, "Look, this guy's coming on," and I was like, "Don't be Matt O'Reilly." And the commentator says, "Yeah, he's coming on for Matt O'Reilly." The air was turning blue, all that type of stuff, and he just put it
yeah,
right
yeah.
on Starfelt's head and it went in. So it was just kind of
Meant
seemed to
to
be
be.
written in the stars. Like it's mad.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we've obviously talked about Celtic quite a lot. We'll move on to your next midfielder,
Yeah,
um, Hani Mukhtar.
yeah. He's
So
a
he's obviously smashing it this season as well. What are your
yeah.
where did your love for him start?
He's a guy I've always held since probably the first season in Sorare. So funnily enough, when the MLS came on, he was kind of under the radar a bit. So he was playing for Nashville, and just before the playoffs, he was injured. So his card was always quite cheap. Like you're talking about like 10 quid, 15 quid for a rare. Even at that point, maybe guys like Vanaken or whatever were over 100 quid. So
Mm,
comparatively, still pretty cheap. And then he came in and he done quite well in the playoffs, but then Nashville went out. And then the next season, um, that was when things really kind of took off in Sorare. So I had the chance to buy super rare cards for like 70 quid, and I got outbid, or there was somebody I knew, I think it was Willie, somebody I knew who was buying it and decided not to outbid him. And all of a sudden things took off. So it's the start of next season, and it became available. I think it was about 400 or 500 quid, which is obviously still a lot of money, but just kind of took the plunge. I think it's definitely been one of my best buys, to be honest. I
Yeah,
mean, he just gets so
smashing it.
many decisives. Like he
Yeah,
just for a
he's
midfielder,
yeah, he's probably one of the key players in that MLS. Well, the key player in that MLS side this year, and
yeah,
probably in the shortlist to be MVP in the MLS this season as well.
yeah. He's not the type of guy who does a big base, but he does. He's always involved in stuff for Nashville, so he does take. I think he takes some of the set pieces. He gets loads of goals and assists. And he doesn't come up with these crazy AA scores or whatever because of the set pieces, but he does come up with assists. And he
Yeah,
just like any time I've really kind of needed some involvement from him, he just always seems to produce. So
yeah,
he's one of those guys where always one of the first picks in terms of teams, and pretty sure he played when I won Messi as well. Who we'll maybe come back
yeah,
to later on, but
yeah,
he his cards risen a lot in value, but in terms of the actual number of cards I've won with him, he's right up there
yeah,
in my whole collection as well, which is mad. But he's been so good, brilliant.
yeah, for sure. So, we'll move on to your next midfielder. Obviously, another
Yeah,
MLS midfielder. So, do you want to
Car-
introduce
Carles
your next one?
Gill. Yeah. I mean, before I say that, I do really love the MLS as well. Like, I'm not just saying that because it's getting quite big and stuff now. Like, I think it's always been quite fun, and because it runs through the summer, you just finish the kind of European leagues and everything. Like, getting involved in the MLS, I find is always really good fun. Carles Gill, again, is somebody I've always kind of held in my gallery. So, fortunately, that year where we bought Mukhtar, etc., Carles Gill had quite a bad injury. I think he'd done his Achilles.
Yeah,
So his scores were brilliant, but his price was pretty down for a while. So I picked one up at that point, and he came back. But I mean, he's just one of these guys where he's kind of the definition of suiting the matrix. To be honest,
yeah,
like I mean, he can do like the weekend he hit 47, which is highly unusual, but um, he's a guy who can bang out an 80 or a 90 score without getting a goal or an assist. He
yeah.
just really suits the matrix, and such a key player for the Revs as well. So everything goes through him. I think he even takes penalties and everything as well. You know, set pieces, penalties, playmaker, the whole shebang. So he's always
He's
been a
got
guy that
every
yeah
opportunity to to get that
to
decisive
do something.
when he can. Yeah.
Aye, I think
So
he's kind of. Sorry, you go.
yeah, I was going to say I never really watched him before. Obviously, I knew about the hype and stuff that was going on about him probably 6 months ago. But I never really got around to watching the Revs play. Um, and my MLS team that I tend to follow more is Philadelphia Union, and I was watching them play the Revs the other week, and he was tearing up the defense, and he got
Yeah.
injured after about 15, 20 minutes. And I was just thinking, thank God, because if he stayed on the pitch, then there was no chance for my
Yeah.
players to do anything.
Yeah, it would. I think the interesting thing with the Revs is that there was a season where they think they won the whole thing. They won the MLS Cup and stuff, and then next season they were poor. But they had played this formation where they had Buxa and Bo playing with Gill, and he was just banging in assists and stuff nearly all the time. Now Bo's come back actually. Um, I think he's doing a bit better because he's one of those guys where he creates a lot and he does try and chip in with goals, but he's more of a creator than anything
Hmm.
else. So you need somebody to put the ball in the net type thing. But
Yeah.
he really just really suits the matrix, and he always carries a high price because he's playing right through the summer where you've got a
Hmm.
shortage of real top class kind of performers on the platform.
Hmm.
Plus you get the crossover from the MLS starting end of the Euro season and then the start of the next Euro season, so you get the crossover period as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he's just such a fun guy. I think I said when I was talking about him recently, like he's one of those guys you pick him and you just press captain. So
Yeah.
like, it
Yeah.
doesn't even really matter who they're playing against or whatever. You just pick him, you hit captain because you know that he's capable of going on these mad runs where he hits like over 90 for like 4 or 5 games in a row. And some guys can do 80s and 90s and 100s, right? But there's not many guys in the platform who
That
can
would
do
do it
that over
that
four, five,
consistently.
6 games. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, he's one of my definitely one of my favourite players ever to have had on the platform. To be honest,
Yeah. He's a good one. So we'll move on to one of your four forwards now.
so we're playing
So
quite an attacking formation here.
yeah.
We're
Yeah,
going,
definitely.
we're
But
going all out.
do it how you want to do it. So
Yeah,
we'll move on to your first and probably I think only uh is J-League cards. Is he J? No, he's
Gaelic,
K-League cards.
Cezinha,
K-League cards.
yeah.
Ignore me. So do you want to tell us about Cecilia, the goat,
Yeah,
from what I
yeah.
understand?
So just when I joined the platform as well, K-League had just come on. So this is like literally 3 years ago tomorrow. So that's my anniversary tomorrow in Sorare. So I remember when one of those kind of eureka moments. I remember playing with the common cards and all that sort of stuff and try to win stuff. And then they would be like somebody would win a tournament and they'd win a card of a few €100. And that got my attention. So I remember a K League come on and the first card came out, and I was like, I'm going to have a look about. And the guy who referred me said, "Oh, this Brazilian guy plays there and he's really good. He's doing all the good scores." So I'll go and I'll see how much he is. So I remember looking at the option and I was like, what's going on here? He's like €400. I was like, what? I was like, what? This guy plays in the K League, right? And I was like, why they spending all this money? So I went and looked up his scores, and his scores were just like insane. He was just like really good. So that was the end of that, because at that point I was spending 10 quid and 20 quid on players and stuff. So I was going near him, but obviously it was kind of a dream to win him. And then eventually, when I got the chance to get one, he would, when things had sort of taken off and had maybe taken a bit of profit from some of the other cards, eventually I bought one. And then I won Messi, who we'll come back to, and then I was really, really lucky. And a few weeks later, a few months later, I won a tournament and I won Messi again. So, so a really kind of fortunate position to be in. But at that point, I was kind of on a between a lot of rares, but not really having many good super rares. And basically, I done a deal, and one of the Messis went, and Cezinha super rare come in. So I picked him because he's just a guy basically who, if he's fit, is pick every single game week, and he's a bit like Carlos Gil as well. He's
It's a captain every
captain.
time.
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah,
he's just that captain. I mean, obviously, a wee bit frustrating with the K League with the Opta stuff and whether or not you get the and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, I think all the games I've played in this season, there's only been one game we didn't get the first senior, so it's not been too bad. But his form has been brilliant, and again, he takes all the set pieces and everything for Diageo. There aren't even really a top team in the K League or whatever, but he's the main man. He's If you ever actually get a chance to watch him, like he is a baller, and I think he's a
yeah,
guy. If he wasn't playing Korea, if you took him out, like you put him in like a reasonable European league, you would actually see that he is actually a pretty good player. Like,
yeah.
people
He'd
look
do
at
it.
these guys and think they're just doing that because it's an Asian league or whatever, but he's actually got loads of quality as well. Like,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
pretty good. So
yeah.
yeah.
I've never had a chance to watch him. I don't sort of delve into the K League too much.
Yeah.
Not now anyway, with obviously the scoring issues and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it's maybe something I've got to get myself a bit more into if those sort of issues get resolved.
Yeah. Well, I think his limit is about 50 quid just now, and he is 33, I think, at the moment, and I think his contract runs until December. But so I don't know what his plans or whatever are after that. I mean, obviously that's hard to tell, but he does seem to be a key man there and seems pretty happy there. So we'll see what
Yeah,
happens with him after that, etc. But I think in those types of leagues, he's still got a couple of years left. So the 50 quid,
yeah,
I think that's pretty good. So
yeah, yeah, definitely. So move on to your next forward. French league forwards, youngster. Do you want to
greedy.
introduce? Yeah,
Yeah. Again, he's a guy I've just held right from the very start of the platform. So he's on the fridge as well. Him, Cherky, Zaniolo, and Go Hatano, who was a Japanese goalkeeper who's an absolute donkey, but still made a profit on him, believe it or not. But yeah, Mean Guiri was obviously come through the Leon youth system, and right back when I started, he was just signing for Nice. So obviously, if people are kind of new to it, if a guy goes to another team and they're not covered, they can't mint any more cards. So at that point, there was some rumours, there was some talk that he was going to go, and he was quite highly rated, right? He was a guy where people were talking about him, but he hadn't really done much, and he was only about 20 or 30 quid or something like that,
yeah,
pretty cheap. Again, probably would have been more if he'd actually already been playing, but I remember buying him, and in his debut for Nice, he scored 2 goals. So
yeah,
I think he won me one of my first ever cards, and yeah, after that, he's because he only had at that point like maybe 20 cards from
Good
um
differential for
yeah. So
yeah,
for Leon, he only had like 20 cards. He's got cards now, but that's only because obviously, like of late, and he was obviously a forward card who was doing pretty good scores. So he was kind of getting on some set pieces and all that type of stuff, or getting involved in the play. So there was a couple of games where he maybe scored one goal and he hit 90 or something. So that was a kind of nice card to have, and I've held him since. So I think he was the first ever card had on the platforms maxed out at level 20 as
yeah,
well. So like XP wise, because it was really, really, really hard toward the end, and I remember as well, it was a really clear game week. I needed them to play and hit 60 plus to win the under 23s, and it came out and said he COVID. So I was gutted. It was like he was playing the Sunday and it's a Saturday night. I was having loads of beers and stuff. I woke up on Sunday, and somebody messaged me and said, "Oh, he's had an R test and he's not got COVID." So and he played and he scored. So that was a madness. That was the first time I'd ever won like a
yeah.
tournament on Sorare. So yeah, he's one of those guys. I'm just gonna keep now. I think that
Keep him.
obviously another year under 23s left, and I think he could go on to better than what he's doing just now as well. Talent's definitely it's a wee bit inconsistent these days. I mean, not he's not a kind of first pick every game week, but I look back at the stats and I think he's one of my most used cards in the 3 years
Yeah,
on so rare. So definitely had to find a place for him in the team.
yeah, yeah. He's quite easily be one of those players that ends up being that sort of 90, 100 scorer every week if he can sort of just break that barrier and go to that next level. And obviously he's
Yeah,
still young at the moment anyway, so
yeah.
you never know. You never know.
Yeah, it's in a good team as well. I mean, Ren's obviously quite an exciting team, and he's not the thing that he scores just now is not on any set pieces or anything. And yet that's something he's capable of, but he's not on them or whatever because they've got really good options. They had Martin Terrier, I think when he get injured, Bourdieu or somebody else taking him. So sorry
Yeah,
for the French pronunciation, but he is capable of doing stuff like that. And obviously, I think he's the type of guy where if you looked at like Benzema or whatever, he was younger and then he's forged this really good career. I think it's quite cool to keep these guys and just rather than just saying, "Oh, I just want to cash in and get a few £100 or whatever," like actually just use them, see where they
yeah.
go, and see if like how much you believe in them actually comes off. But he's a
He,
guy who used like all the time as well, which is good.
he comes across as a Madrid signing. I could see him two, three
Aye.
years, 2, 3 years having him up top for Madrid. I don't see why not. I think he's their kind of player.
Yeah, I think he is that
You never
good.
know.
To be honest, I think he is. Like, obviously, with these guys, you'll never get to the huge prices until you kind of become an Mbappe or whatever. But or what even if you might even end up being a PSG player, because
Yeah,
they might lose Mbappe, right? Because that's all going a bit ski whiff. But you could see him, like, imagine him playing beside Neymar or something. The scores would be pretty mad then. So I definitely think he's capable of doing more than this now. But I also think Ren are pretty good as well. That they get in Europe quite regularly and we've got quite an exciting young team. Sign a kind of like this thing the link with Enzo Lafie and stuff. So you see them building a really good team that could really do some damage. I think
yeah,
in that league or in Europe.
yeah. Sure. So moving on from potential PSG prospects to uh, previous PSG
Yeah,
star. Do you want to tell us about your
yeah.
um,
Lionel Messi.
forward?
Yeah, I think probably because of the price and everything at the time, probably biggest win on the platform. Obviously, when I started 3 years ago, PSG, Real Madrid, etc., weren't even on the platform, so it was a weird one because Messi moved from Barcelona to PSG, and Barcelona, I think, then got minted or licensed, but there was still no Messi cards, obviously,
Mhm.
because he'd moved. So everybody's, oh, that would have been amazing, get a Messi Barcelona card. And then a couple of months later, PSG get cards. So then you were bringing in Neymar, Mbappe, Messi, the whole sort of shebang. But yeah, I mean, it was I won the All Star Rare Pro. Let's see if I actually find the team so that I can give you the actual
Yeah,
accurate team. But it was a mad one. All-Star Rare Pro. So it was no, that was the second one. Second one was a bit higher. So actually,
Yeah.
that had Messi in it. But I think from memory, it was Joe Willis, Walker Zimmerman, Carles Gill, Hanny, and somebody else. So it was one of these like kind of midweek game weeks where there was loads on, and there
Yeah.
was like star rares and stuff available in All Star Rare Pro, and it was mad. Like Nashville won 5-2 or something. So I woke up and I looked at it, it was like 5-2. I was like, "Oh, that's not going to win anything." But Joe Willis had saved a penalty. Zimmerman had scored,
Uh,
and then Hanny had scored a hat trick or something. And I think Gill had captain Gill, and he'd done some sort of insane 90 or whatever. So won the All Star Rep Pro, and um, the prize pool was just ridiculous. The prize pool was like Mbappe,
all the
Messi,
top
and
ones,
these,
all the top guys.
and they were all at five figures, right? They were all like above five figures in terms of pounds and value and stuff at that point. So it was a huge sweat. So I just remember I was working that day, and it was kind of at the point, the rewards come out now at 7, but you didn't know when they were going to come out. So you were sitting like pressing screen, refresh, refresh, refresh. So the nerves were building up, and I just remember sort of clicking it, and he came up, and before I could do anything else, I just clicked next because I was in shock. I was like the nerves and everything, and I was
Yeah.
just like, it's like I can't believe it. We've won Messi, so and I was working, so I couldn't even go absolutely mad either because it's like trying to hold in my emotion, like shouting and stuff in the office. But aye, that was mad. That
Yeah.
was crazy, and obviously it was a lot of money and stuff. But I made the decision, and I was like, I'm going to keep him because he's best scores on the platform and everything, and
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe have some resale later on. But I want to actually keep winning, and he ended up winning me another Messi. So so I was just
But
looking at
uh,
my
yeah.
all-time top scores here, and basically I had another All-Star Rep Pro with 502, and it was Joe Willis, Walker Zimmerman, Gill, Mukhtar, Messi captain, and Messi get 2 assists and hit 100. So I was 502. That was for, and basically, and then I end up winning another Messi. So there we go. It's just it's mad, but sometimes like obviously people would win a big card or whatever, let's just want to cash in and stuff like that. But if you're able to, or whatever, some of these guys can then let you go on and win something else. It needs
Yeah.
to be what
Yeah,
player
for sure. And obviously, you
crazy.
kept that Messi, ended up winning another one, and it's obviously meant you can bring in one of probably your other favorite cards
Yeah, yeah. It's
of
a really kind
your
of
journey. So
turning point, like because guys like Carlos Gill and Mukhtar and stuff, obviously they became good, right? But like I was never really in a position before that where I was going to go and spend like 10 grand on a card or whatever. Like that was just pie in the sky. People were doing stuff like that, but like, I was having to win guys or whatever. So to pick out a win like that was huge, because I'd
yeah,
won cards and stuff before that, but not like actually won
yeah,
many tournaments. Only won like one tournament or something before that. So that was a huge turning point. And Messi, like obviously the World Cup and everything wise, like, I just remember those kind of couple of Saturday night games, sitting with a few beers, watching Messi playing the World Cup. It's thinking, this is just peak football. This, like,
yeah,
he was so good to watch, and everybody wanted him to win it, and it was just a mad story. So yeah,
yeah,
it's a really cool card to own, and obviously if you can't afford the rares and all that sort of stuff, the
yeah,
limited I think about 130, £140 now, which I know is a lot of money, but yeah, I think he'll bash up the MLS, to be honest. I mean, like, the standard of
yeah.
defending is not really
And
that good there. So
to be honest, obviously, there's not going to ever be too many more Messi cards minted. He's not going to be around forever. So
yeah,
if Sorare in 5 to 10 years does become the sort of collectible beast that um, real physical world football cards are at the moment, then having one of those sort of very few limited mints of Messi is going to be really valuable, hopefully,
yeah,
because we never know, we don't know what's going to happen with it, and if they keep going down this collection route, then
yeah,
you could quite easily see if there's only 5 6 thousand Messi cards altogether across all scarcities, then people are going to want to have them if So Rare explodes and they've
yeah.
got tens of millions of users on the platform. So
Yeah.
um, for
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah,
130 150 quids, then I think he's a good shout because he's still got some. He still have a few years of utility left in him, especially at the MLS.
I'll tell you what as well. See if you've got some good players to play with him, you will win more than 120 or 130 quid's worth of stuff with him.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
he just he's before he even went to the MLS, he was already in the top five on the platform in terms of scores, and he even had a spell at PSG where people were saying he was not playing that well or he'd lost it or whatever, and he was hitting the post and the woodwork and everything all the time.
But he was
And
still
like,
smashing
yeah,
scores. So,
70s and stuff. Like he's a madman. He's a guy who can do 100 with one decisive. I mean,
yeah,
you'll see other guys will score a hat trick and they'll hit like 90 and stuff. And Messi's a guy who can actually hit 100 with one goal or one assist, which is hugely rare, obviously. And so rare. I know that can happen. Maybe yeah, it's a defender with a dominant game or whatever. Messi actually does hit goals and assists all the time as well. So he's a freak of nature from that point of view. But I think
yeah,
like obviously Inter Miami's an interesting proposition because they're not really that good a team, but now they're signing guys like Busquets and they're signing Jordi Alba and stuff. So you can just see that the quality, just like the change in the quality is going to be immense. Like he'll,
yeah,
he'll, he'll stroll about in the MLS and he'll be putting up AA scores left, right, and centre because he'll just be going by people like they're not there. Because all right,
yeah,
I mean it is not a bad league MLS, so maybe I've been a bit harsh, but the standard of defending that he's going to be playing against is not going to be the same as the World Cup
yeah,
or the Champions League or whatever that he's been playing in. So, and he'll be keen to impress. But yeah, and to your point about collectability, I think he's a guy now where I'm just going to hold him right to the end. Like,
yeah,
I think that I'll actually make more by keeping him and using him than I would do by selling him and then having to use somebody else. So if he plays in the MLS for 2 years, I'm just going to use him for 2 years,
yeah,
and then hopefully at some point in future he'll have some resale value. But I still think he'll make more than I would do getting like £1,000 or whatever in
for
for
him now.
selling him. You
So,
So
yeah. We'll move on to your final player, your main target man,
yeah,
kind of up the top. Do you wanna introduce your last Celtic boy
Diogo
the video?
Furuhashi. Um, what a legend. Love the wee guy. He's not a target man though.
No, no,
But
he's not.
top
He's
top
not.
scorer. Interesting stat. I think he scored like 27 goals or something in the league this season, but never took any penalties or anything either. So there was like Van Veen and Shanklin and stuff weren't too far behind him, but both had scored like at least 10 goals and penalties and stuff. And yeah, I mean he's a guy who I knew obviously on Sorare before Celtic signed him, Vissel
Yeah,
Kobe cards, and sort of followed him a bit, and he was doing well with Vissel Kobe. And I just remember waking up one morning, Celtic are signing Furuhashi. What? Signing Furuhashi? And like people were asking me, do you know this guy? Is he any good? I think this is a really good signing. You'll
yeah,
probably not be. He was like, listen, I've spent 5 million in this guy. Like this guy's really good, and he's been brilliant. Fans love him.
yeah,
And I think was he the first? No, it wasn't the first unique. So I think he's the second unique we ever had on Sorare. So got a Phil Max, which hasn't really worked out so far. But yeah, he was one of those guys that kind of pushed the boat. I ended up like doing a trade for like 7 or 8 rares, which seemed a
yeah,
bit mad at the time, but he's got the chance of getting him. And yeah, he's every Celtic fan loves him.
yeah,
What's hard to describe because people watch him, and obviously the thing he's scoring goals. He's not a world beater, but the guy has scored in pretty much every big game that Celtic have played in domestically.
yeah,
So he scored 2 goals in his first ever cup final. Scored against Rangers. Scored 2 goals against Rangers. Scored in 2 goals again in the cup final. Plus he's banged in all these goals and everything in the league. So he's not only a good finisher, but he seems to be a
turns
kind of
up.
big game player.
Yeah, yeah,
Picking up these goals in big games, and he scored 2 goals that day when I won the All Star Unique. So I think he took off 55 minutes to get injured, but he still done like 70 odds or whatever because he'd already scored 2 goals, and that got
yeah,
the whole day going. The whole stadium were absolutely bouncing because he scored 2 really pretty good
yeah.
goals,
I
and
thought it
then
was the first half. I thought he came off first half.
really early. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think he wasn't on long. I mean, he wasn't on long enough to do a significant score, but obviously
managed
getting
to get the goals.
Yeah, well, I mean that lineup had a decisive in every position, obviously, and
Mm,
he got two, so it was a wee bit disappointing he went off early because he might have got a hat trick or whatever. But at the end of the day, he done enough for a forward position anyway. He done enough for the team. But yeah, I mean, obviously one of my favourite players in real life, not just so rare.
yeah,
Like just the wee man's absolutely brilliant. Celtic fans love him. and he works hard as well. He's not scores all these goals, and you might not translate into AA or whatever on Sorare, but he runs his heart out. He never stops running, which
Do
is
you,
just
how do you think he's going to adapt to Brendan Rodgers' sort of style of play? Because obviously he played a very specific role in that
yeah,
Ange system of a sort of a busy pressing forwards that was there for tap ins and poaching goals essentially.
yeah.
And I know that's not what he was all about, but predominantly a lot of his goals came from there. Do you think he's going to sort of fit in with that Brendan Rodgers style of play as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Rodgers and Ange have got a lot of similarities. I mean, obviously Rodgers been away for a few years, so if you look back to how he played when he was at Celtic before, he has managed Leicester and he's had to adapt maybe his tactics and things. But he's a guy who likes to press off the ball. But I think the difference might be that on the ball he's maybe even slightly more possession focused. I mean,
Mhm.
Celtic really dominated possession in a lot of games anyway last season. But he's the type of guy where you know he really likes to dominate possession. He likes, kind of wide players, in terms of like spreading the pitch out and that type of stuff. But I don't think there'll be a lot of things that are that much different depending on how the recruitment goes and who stays. So
Yeah.
if people start coming in with these huge bids or whatever for Furuhashi or for Jota or for Hatati, the Celtic maybe say, well, 25 million or whatever, that's just mega money for us. Do we take it? But Celtic's a good financial position. They're in the Champions League, pretty healthy financial position, had some player sales and things. So actually saying Rodgers has got a good budget, and he said when he joined that he doesn't see many players coming in. So he was hinting that if we bring somebody in, it's going to be all out attack in terms of quality. So I think Furuhashi will still be a main man up there. I don't think like
Mhm.
you look at how Rodgers played at Leicester, played with guys like Jamie Vardy, and Jamie Vardy's actually a fairly similar player to
Mhm.
Furuhashi, so I think he'll do well. And I don't see him actually want to sell a lot of Celtic's good players because the remit is to come in and follow up on the success and do something in Europe. Well, you're not going to do anything in Europe. You're going to sell your top scorer, right? So who
Yeah.
knows? Mega bid comes in, then it might still happen. But I think he'll do a similar job under Rodgers to what he's done under Ange.
Sure. So, um, yeah, I mean that's it for your team. Obviously, it's been a bit of a journey. I mean, how would you sort of summarize your so rare journey altogether, if you had to give it a few words?
It's been mad. Um, Seems a wee bit like a dream, to be honest. Like, because I know guys like see my gallery and stuff now, and see like it's like a huge gallery, and I've got all these cards, and I've got gallery value, and I can compete in these tournaments. But that's not where it started at all. Like,
Mm.
started buying guys who were injured or guys for a tenner or there was guys going for 200 and 300 quid and I was like, I'm not spending that like on a digital
Yeah, yeah,
football card. Like, no, I'm not doing that. And I've just built it up through buying young guys, and some guys have obviously turned out really well, and the platforms turned out really well, and then just ducking and diving and working my way up. But it's a bit surreal, to be honest. But I don't kind of lose sight of like it can be quite hard as well, if you know what I mean. So if you're
mm,
enjoying the platform or sort of you're winning, then you should always appreciate it. Because sometimes see guys and maybe they win a card and they'll go, oh, I was expecting this, expecting that. I just enjoy winning, like enjoy the
yeah,
platform because I think it's one of the best, if not the best, I've ever been on. Like I just don't, just
yeah,
think it's pretty unique for want of a better word, and I think we're going back in the right direction. But as a personal journey, it's been
yeah.
crazy. I can't believe
I,
it. Sometimes it's surreal. So
I think for me, I started on another platform that should not be named.
I
I
was
think
on lots of them.
a lot of us so rare guys were sort of on that platform to start with, and a lot of friends and family had known about me being on that kind of platform, and there's always those sort of people that were a bit skeptical and like, oh, it's not going to turn out to what you think it's going to be, and then obviously that goes down, and everyone sort of thinks, yeah, I was right. Obviously now coming into this, and there's people that know that this is what I'm involved in now as well. They have that same sort of skepticism, but I can sort of, I think I can wholeheartedly say that it's a totally different ball game, whole different kettle of fish, and I can see this being probably the biggest platform in fantasy sports in even in 2 years' time. I think it could really explode that quickly once or a few more minor issues are ironed out. So
Yeah,
I'm sort of really excited, especially about next season. So it's going to be my sort of first season, full European season with a sort of slightly bigger gallery. I mean, not anywhere on the realms of potentially yours or anywhere like that, but um, it's 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 just something I'm really looking forward to next year to sort of try and compete for a whole season. So I think I'm finally in a place where I've got a few teams that are going to be able to compete every year. So
yeah.
oh, I lost audio for some reason.
No, I can hear
There we
you.
go. There you go. That's better. There you go.
Nearly as good
Yeah,
as me at
I
these
know.
technical things. Yeah,
No, my microphone's not great, but yeah, okay, I think that's better now. So, yeah,
yeah,
I'm really excited for what the next year and two has to offer.
yeah. I think the platform has so much scope, and the biggest thing that probably holds it back just now, I don't think it's quite what's happened with other platforms as well. I think there's also the element of it is like because crypto and stuff. So, because your cards are held in Ethereum or because it's on the blockchain and stuff, this is all new stuff, and you've had that boom, and then things have went bust. But what's really telling is that it's so rare
It's
it's
survived.
survived. Yeah, there was people buying pictures of apes and all this sort of stuff for all these mad prices. And I remember saying at the time, it's like, I don't get how you value something like that. And again, sorry, our cards probably got to a price where maybe they were not overvalued, but there was just so much hype and so much money and stuff being spent on them. But we're coming back to more a realistic level now, but the scope for it to improve, and with the platform's as good as it's been. You've got
Yeah,
EPL, you've got all the top licenses, you've got really good game depth across different leagues. You've got coverage in the summer, covering under 21 games now. We're covering national games. There's basically something on every
every
game
week.
week, and there's 2 game weeks a week. So you're getting
Yeah,
maximum engagement. And I think the biggest thing just is the actual fun factor of it. Like, I'd never ever before Sorare ever watched a Nashville game. I'd never been interested in MLS. I'd never watched a J League game or a K League. I couldn't even have named a team in the K League before Sorare. But now all these different teams in different countries and different players and stuff, and that's what really opens it up for Sorare. It opens it up to these other teams because Cezinha is one of the most well-known players on Sorare, and that's brilliant exposure for the K League. Or
hmm,
Vanaken's a hero, so like people in Belgium
yeah,
probably don't believe that, Hans Vanaken, but the guy's a total cult hero and stuff on Sorare. So it's just it gives a chance for all the different leagues to play a part rather than FPL, something I've never really got into. Obviously, it's huge, millions of users, all that type of stuff, but it's only based on the EPL, and it's quite
yeah,
a game with quite a simple matrix and stuff. Whereas Sorare, you can go into as much detail as you really want on it. That's quite detailed as well.
yeah,
I just find it loads of fun. Just really enjoy it.
yeah,
That's why I do stuff like this as well. People ask me to do things and just think I don't mind talking about Sorare, so like
yeah. It's fun.
I'll
It's
do it.
fun. So,
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything we needed to talk about today. So for anyone that doesn't know, I don't know why you wouldn't, but McBride has his own YouTube channel as well. So I'll leave that in the description. And
Good man.
for anyone that wants to sign up to SoRare, there's also going to be a link in the description for that as well. And you'll get a free limited card for buying 5 on the auction house. So is there anything else that you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I think it's just quite exciting times to go on Sorare. Like, I'm really looking forward to the new season as well. So it's been quite fun following the under 21s and stuff that's just been covered. But I think we've got a good spell coming ahead. I think that people are enjoying it. Many of
Yeah,
the wee minor things that people weren't happy with or needed to be introduced have all been done. I think it's settling down. I think when they release that fiat wallet where people can just get money in and out nice and easily and overcome some of those crypto barriers, that's where we'll
yeah,
start going back up again. So hope everybody enjoys it. Don't spend anything that you can't really afford to lose or lose any sleep over or whatever.
yeah,
But if you enjoy it, then play, follow some teams, and and have some fun and good luck. Hope you win
Yeah,
some stuff as well.
well said. Well said. So, yeah, I think apart from that, have a good rest of your day, everyone, and make sure you do subscribe and come back for the next video. I'm sure we'll have McBride on again in the future for some more content. And
Guest.
yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. So have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Cheers.